They say dead men tell no tales, but we have stories from the grave and beyond.
Hi everyone, I'm Robin Sewell, and this week on Arizona Highways Television,
Scary fun to the thrills and chills of Arizona's haunted highways and hallways.
I do a ghost hunt at the Copper Queen on Thursday evenings, and I've seen the same ghost outside of room 409 about a dozen times.
The ghost stories that make your skin crawl. We head out across our state to bring you some of the scariest and strangest stories, from the town too tough to die to a stretch of highway that's still alive and kicking. Stories from above ground, underground, and somewhere in between.
It's what I put on my tax forms when I pay my taxes. Ghost host.
You could call Renee Harper the undertaker of the undead.
I run the Old Bisbee Ghost Tour, which is we do 5 different tours. Our most popular tour is a walking tour of Bisbee, where you hear the ghost stories and the folklore regarding the ghosts which haunt the buildings. We also do 3 separate ghost hunts, one of the Bisbee Inn, one of the Copper Queen, one of the Oliver House Bed and Breakfast, and then we do our spooktacular haunted pub crawl.
If you're heading out in search of spirits, you might want to have a ghost host leading the charge.
have you ever seen a ghost?
Mm-hmm.
You have?
I do a ghost hunt at the Copper Queen on Thursday evenings, and I've seen the same ghost outside of room 409 about a dozen times.
The town of Bisbee is a mile high, but today's tour is taking us 6 feet under.
A hearse that's covered in glitter. That's a first for me. It's a first for me riding in a hearse while I'm still breathing, and one covered in glitter. That makes a statement.
It does.
So it is kind of appropriate that we would take a hearse into a cemetery.
Yeah, this is the Evergreen Cemetery. It's not the original cemetery in Bisbee. The original cemetery is what's now City Park. They actually built a park for kids to play in on top of the original cemetery.
Gotcha.
Most of the bodies were taken here.
Most of them?
Most.
Okay. How many people are buried in here?
There are more people buried in the Evergreen Cemetery than there are residents living in Bisbee.
Gotcha.
And with a population of 5,000, give or take, that's a lot of bodies. And Renee knows where most of them are buried.
Right over on our left, this big white monument here, that is where George Warren is buried.
Ooh.
He was actually on the Arizona State Seal. He is who discovered copper here in Bisbee. So if it wasn't for George Warren, we would not be here today.
While hanging out among the headstones may seem odd to you, Renee says it's the perfect way to learn about a town's past.
This is a must-stop when people are visiting Bisbee.
I think so, because I like to go into the old cemeteries and look at the old gravestones and try to learn about the people that were there before. So for someone like me, it totally is.
So what is that, like a little history of Bisbee? You feel like it gives you that?
Yes.
Or is it, but you know, it is a little macabre.
Macabre is in the eye of the beholder.
My name is Paula Jean Reed, and I am the proprietor of Boot Hill Graveyard Gift Shop and the caretaker of the graveyard itself. Welcome to Boot Hill. There are over 300 graves in the graveyard. 250 of them we have information on. The rest are unknown.
Here lie the losers of the gunfight at the OK Corral at the Boot Hill Cemetery in Tombstone. Victims of violent deaths and seedy lifestyles are buried here. Lynch victims, assorted gunslingers, and soiled doves.
The Boot Hills of the Old West acquired their names because they were cemeteries that predominantly the people buried in them died with their boots on, meaning they didn't die natural causes.
You can spend an entire afternoon at Boot Hill reading the tombstone epitaphs. It's like reading from one of those old dime store novel westerns. You'll be a little creeped out, and fascinated too at this monument and literal testament to the violent, rough and tumble Western town that was once Tombstone.
There's a lot of history in the building. There's a lot of ghostly tales in the building. We have 3 different ghosts or apparitions. We have Mrs. Mulligan, who fell down on the front steps, broke her neck, and they say when you smell lilacs in this hotel, it's perfumey, it's light, it comes at you from all angles, and that is Mrs. Mulligan. As well, their smallest child, little red-headed toddler, fell down the back steps on her tricycle and passed away, and they say she is still here. She has 2 little dolls, a Raggedy Ann and Andy, that are upstairs on the 3rd floor today, but tomorrow morning it may not be the same. They move around the hotel and nobody knows why.
What I heard actually the first time was a little patter of children's feet. And the next morning I walked down and asked everybody having coffee who had the little child upstairs, and no one said there's no little child upstairs. One embarrassing moment is when I was getting out of the shower, I heard little giggles, and it was kind of disconcerting when you hear giggling, and especially a little girl in your room and you're a single guy. Nevertheless, I asked her not to watch me while I was naked. She never came back around.
The 3rd one is a very male presence, and I know John has seen him, but I have not seen him. And he says when he sits down on a bed upstairs on the 3rd floor, you can feel somebody, you can hear the bed creak, but there's nobody there.
Arizona Highways Television is brought to you by Arizona Public Service and the Arizona Office of Tourism.
There's a new story waiting to be written this fall, and it's in your Arizona state parks. Enjoy the beautiful fall color from the Colorado River to the Mogollon Rim, all the way to the high southern desert. Cross something off your bucket list by reaching the peaks of our highest mountains, or head underground at Kartchner Caverns. And there's no better time to catch a memory and go fishing at any of our lake and river parks. Let us show you everything you ought to know about Arizona at azstateparks.com/ArizonaFun, and we'll see you in the parks.
Subscribe to Arizona Highways Magazine. 1 full year, 12 issues, is just $18. That's $6 less than the regular price. Visit ArizonaHighways.com, click on subscribe, and use promo code SPECIAL.
This is our home. In the summer, we like to stay cool, but we also like to save money on our electric bill. Because we're on a time of use plan, we have our thermostat program to turn up a few degrees starting at 3 p.m. We use LED lights to save on our energy bill, but turn off all the lights when we're not here. And to stay cool, we also use ceiling fans, but only when we're in the room, because fans cool people, not rooms. So if there's no people, there's no need to run the fans, and that means more money in our pocket. Cha-ching!
For more Arizona Highways adventures, hidden Arizona treasures, and fun behind-the-scenes stories, follow AZ Highways TV on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Arizona is rather famous for its haunted hotels. At the Copper Queen, Arizona's oldest and continuously running hotel, hundreds of thousands of guests have checked out, but some have never left.
We do have some ghosts here at the hotel. We're known for our ghosts. We've been featured on the Ghost Hunters and the Ghost Adventures. Many other paranormal people have been here and they found lots of things. The most common ghost sighting is Billy. He's a young boy that rumor has it that he drowned in the San Pedro River. And we figured that his mom must have worked here, maybe a housekeeper, front desk or something like that, because he's here more than anybody else. And adults can't see him. Now I've had adults tell me, you know, my little 3-year-old was over in the corner and playing with somebody, and he said, who are you playing with? Oh, this little boy. They couldn't see him. But in some of the rooms, sometimes when you turn on the bath water or something, you'll hear a little child cry, and that's probably because he drowned in the San Pedro.
We had a guest that checked out of Billy's room, and he actually put foot powder on his feet, walked out of the room, came back in, and where the foot powder was laid on the floor, there were tiny footprints of a child, and he was by himself with another adult in the room. So no children are in the room. So that was one of my favorite ones.
Fabiana is the front desk clerk at the Copper Queen Hotel, and she's heard a lot of ghost stories, especially out of room 315, better known as Julia Lowell's room.
She's actually the lady of the night that they say haunts the property.
She hung herself in room 315 after she was scorned by a lover, but the afterlife hasn't quelled her affections.
More of the tickle of your feet, whisper in the ear, and messing with blankets.
At the Hotel Congress in Tucson, it's rooms 219 and 220 that have tales to tell.
Of the 4 ghost rooms we have here at the hotel, this is room 220, Vince's room. Vince checked into the hotel in 1965, got off the Southern Pacific Railroad, checked into the hotel, and never checked out. He actually lived here for 30 years, passed away about 10 years ago, but the maids keep telling us he leaves his things here over and over again. We're in room 219, and we often have guests tell us that they need to have the bathroom door unlocked, but we don't have a key for that bathroom. It has to be locked from the inside. So someone or something is locking them out.
And there are plenty of strange spirits lurking at Flagstaff's Hotel Monte Vista.
Our ghosts they aren't scary necessarily, but they are tricksters. The John Bon Jovi room, which is room 305.
There was an old lady who used to live in that room. She was a long-term tenant, and she was always seen sitting in a rocking chair looking out the window, whether she was just looking out, gazing at the sky, or waiting for someone, we really don't know, but apparently she died in that room. And the housekeepers always say that when they go in and clean the room, they'll move the rocking chair, and when they come back, it's sitting in front of the window, rocking back and forth.
Along Route 66, hotels are still alive and kicking with the spirit of the past.
Hello, I'm ELINOR Lewis, and welcome to Wigwam Village number 6.
In the heart of Holbrook, the vacancy at the Wigwam Motel is a beacon for this pit stop of Americana, and maybe even a little superstition.
We are in Wigwam number 15. There are 15 wigwams, but they're numbered 16 because number 13 is a superstitious number. And so we've always abided by that because that's the way my father had it.
And still to come, your number may be up after you check into this former hospital that's still hosting some ghosts. There is an old German proverb that says fear makes the wolf bigger than he is. If that's the case, then the town of Jerome is growing fangs.
We first started hearing the stories when we came up here in the early 90s in 1994 from some of the older folk living down in the town.
Even in the daytime, there is something a little unsettling about the old town, set up high where quite possibly the hills have eyes.
As a kid running through the building and playing around up here, I definitely felt a presence, I think, here.
Chris ALTHEER was raised in the Jerome Grand Hotel, the town's former hospital, and one of the most haunted buildings around.
A lot of the housekeepers even would kind of share stories, and they would say they'd be cleaning rooms from time to time, and you would just get that real cold chill kind of go through you. Just hearing all of the old hospital stories. There was one death a day, approximately, in this building. They were doing a lot of operations, and a lot of those were amputations.
That alone wouldn't be so creepy if the chute where all those body parts were disposed of wasn't in one of the hotel hallways.
The surgeons and the doctors were able to come out of the operating room, which is down on this hallway, and they were able to walk to that chute and dispose of some pretty gruesome things that were coming out of the operating room.
People say the ghosts roam the halls, and visitors to the Jerome Grand Hotel claim they've seen them.
We get probably one call every 2 or 3 days from a paranormal group that would like to come up and search at the Jerome Grand Hotel. The biggest group that came up here is without a doubt the Arizona Paranormal Society. And they brought 14 investigators up here on one night, and in one night with those 14 people, they got over 40 hours of paranormal activity evidence.
Most hotels want to keep the hauntings quiet, but the Jerome Grand promotes it. They offer a ghost package, which comes complete with digital cameras and ghost meters. Sightings of a woman in white are common. An angry man, believed to have been an elevator repairman, supposedly walks the hallways. He was found crushed to death by the elevator. Chris ALTHEER believes the stories. Creepy things happen to him, too.
We had nobody scheduled to check in that day. We had nobody in the building, in fact. And the phone started ringing down behind the front desk, and it was on the switchboard. And this phone call was coming from room 41 up on the top floor. So I picked up the phone, and it was a woman, and she was speaking a very, very fast language. It was very foreign. It sounded like this woman was in trouble. And then all of a sudden, the phone cut out and went dead. So I hung up the phone, and I took my keys. I ran up to that room up on the top floor, and there was nobody in the room. I picked up the phone, and I made sure that it rang down on that same line, and it did. It was working fine. So I left, and I went back downstairs and sat in my chair. And as I sat in that chair, it rang again. The phone started ringing, and I picked it up, but this time there was just some very, very eerie breathing noises, very disturbing, very raspy breathing noises.
If you like the feeling of fright, go there on some full moon night. Even if you don't see anything or anyone, we guarantee it's a Halloween delight.
This is actually what they call Dead Man's Hole, this arch right here. People in Whitechapel were very, very poor, and if I was a member of your family and I died, you would sell my body as a cadaver to the nearest hospital for money, okay? And so the hospital in Whitechapel was very, very poor, and the one in South London had a little more money to pay for corpses. So what they would do is they would stack the corpses on the riverbank underneath these arches. And so you could look off either side of the bridge. If you didn't see hundreds of corpses stacked on the riverbank, you'd see thousands of them. For 37 years, people have seen ghosts on the London Bridge, and they particularly see a man and a woman dressed in British clothing walking down these steps. People have seen them so clearly that they've actually walked up to them and asked them for directions. People have been bumped and brushed by them to look and only see them for a millionth of a second. And people from all over the world have come to London Bridge and told me that same story.
There were 111 deaths here at the Territorial Prison. 104 of them are buried in the prison cemetery. The main cause of death was consumption, or better known as tuberculosis. 8 were shot while trying to escape. 2 killed by falling rocks, some drowned in the river, a couple murdered by their cellmates. There's 2 areas that are supposedly haunted here at the Territorial Prison. One is the main cell block area, the cell on the far end, cell number 14, and supposedly the ghost of John Ryan haunts the cell. He was in prison for a crime against nature. He was disliked by the guards and by the convicts, and he couldn't take this, so he actually hung himself in his cell. The other area that is haunted is the dark cell, and that is haunted by the spirit of a little girl who lived in the dark cell during the 1930s during the Great Depression. We do have a prison cemetery. There are 104 convicts buried in our cemetery, though there were 111 deaths. And the ground was very, very hard, so imagine the convicts weren't buried very deep in that cemetery, though after they were buried, rocks were piled above the graves. There's no more headstones, and the reason for that is because people took their headstones either home as souvenir or used them as firewood. We only have 1 headstone left, and that's on display in the museum.
That sound is crickets. You see, the dinner bell has been rung here at the spider farm. The tarantulas, yes, tarantulas, are hungry. Most any insect will do, but crickets seem to be a favorite.
Sometimes one of them crawls out of the lid and it's like, okay, quick, stand up before it crawls on your clothes.
One cricket can keep a spider fed for days.
They start as babies and then they're going all the way to adults.
Heather works for owners Chuck and Anita Christensen. The couple is in the business of raising spiders and other poisonous creatures. At times, the Christensens will have as many as 75,000 spiders living in the house with them. It's all happening inside this modest home here in the tiny Arizona town of Yarnell.
It's often hard to explain what we do and why we do it.
Not just tarantulas, but many other varieties of spiders, including Arizona's dreaded black widow, with her telltale red hourglass figure on her black body.
Spiders are something you need to respect.
The black widows are fed maggots.
Some spiders can kill. There's a lot of spiders out there that we don't know what the venoms are capable of doing. And sometimes that can cause some serious problems that can last for years.
Now it's milking time on the spider farm. A tray of waiting tarantulas.
I've never had a serious bite, okay? I mean, that's something that actually landed me in the hospital, okay? But I've probably had, I'm guessing, maybe a few thousand spider bites, scorpion stings, centipede bites, whatever. But most of them are trivial.
Carbon dioxide bubbling through these tubes acts to knock the big hairy spiders out. While they're under, Chuck hangs their fangs over the edge of this tube and then applies a little electric shock. And presto, venom.
If you calculate out per gram, like a black widow venom, okay, might be a few $1 million, okay, per gram, okay? But nobody will ever buy a few $1 million worth of black widow venom, okay? They might buy a few $100s or maybe a few $1,000s or something like that maximum. And that's a lot of work just to produce that amount.
The spider venom is valuable because drug companies think it'll be the next big thing.
For example, new ways or new ideas, techniques to stop atrial fibrillation, heart attack, block epilepsy, bladder control, pain. Pain is a very big topic right now. And there's a lot of stuff that spider venoms have that can reduce pain. But the discoveries, okay, if a pharmaceutical makes a discovery off of that, it could really be worth billions and billions of dollars, easily.
The scariest part of my job is, probably working with the tarantulas, because the smaller spiders are they're small.
The Christiansens say they don't worry much about these little killers getting loose inside their house. Their security team, these common daddy longleg spiders, they can catch and kill a black widow. So think about that next time you sweep your house clean of all those cobwebs.
When I hand them their keys, I always tell them to sleep well.
When you stay at one of Arizona's haunted hotels, you never know if you may be unlocking a glimpse from the grave.
When you turn on the bath water or something, you'll hear a little child cry.
While some frights are all in good fun,
it's like, yikes! It embodies like sort of joy, but yet a little like,
there are tours that just might make the hair on the back of your neck stand up.
I do a ghost hunt at the Copper Queen on Thursday evenings, and I've seen the same ghost outside of room 409 about a dozen times.
And where else but in Arizona does a ghost host drive a Cadillac coffin? While it may have been my first time in a hearse, Renee assures me it won't be my last.
Thanks everyone so much for joining us. I'm Robin Sewell, and we'll see you on the next Arizona Highways.